Have you heard of the next 3 or 4 more shortages that are about to hit us, that are developing in the background? We seem to be having a shortage of everything these days. Just in the last few days, we've been hearing about how the rice shortage has gotten a whole lot worse. It's really starting to hit us. Italy is having their crop is devastated in Italy. California rice crop, India rice crop, Dragon Country rice crop. All of them are being devastated right now. Dragon Country has record high temperatures across much of their country, and has for the last week or two, and it's just killing all the crops out there. When we look at like France and other countries in Europe, they're being baked. Their crops are being decimated from England all the way down to Spain, across to Italy, and all the way up into Germany, and even up into Denmark and such. We're hearing coffee shortages now. Brazil's crop has been decimated by a heat wave in the last several weeks. Central America, same thing. They're having a heat wave that's decimating the coffee crops. Vietnam, they're losing both wheat crops as well as coffee crops. We're seeing shortages of corn out there developing as the first major survey of corn crops across the United States are. The reports are rolling in, and they're seeing very, very bad pollination. They're seeing very small ears of corn or no ears of corn at all. They're seeing the crops are dry. They have not gotten the water they needed, and so we're seeing not good news coming out there on corn. And of course, most of that comes from the United States. We're seeing shortages of aluminum. Or aluminium, depending on where you're from, zinc, silver, copper, other metals that take a lot of energy to produce them. We're seeing that they are not being produced in numbers, and so we're seeing the inventories of aluminum dropping rapidly. We're seeing inventory of zinc dropping rapidly. We're seeing it was 1/6 of the silver deposits in the London Metal Exchange has disappeared in the last couple of months. 1/6 of all the silver deposits in the London Metals Exchange disappearing. And it's not because banks are withdrawing. It's they're selling it to somebody, and I believe it's probably the strong retail demand for it right now. But we're seeing that across the board. Aluminum, same thing. We're seeing the stocks plummeting. Where is all that metal going? It's not that the metal's going anywhere. It's just that nobody's making more. It costs too much energy in order to farm. It takes too much energy to mine. It takes too much energy to process ores. And that's really where we come down to the heart of this. And that is that we have an energy crisis. And it is affecting everything across the board. Why don't we have fertilizer? Because natural gas is too expensive, and that's where we get a lot of our fertilizer from. And also, we don't want to import fertilizer from certain countries. There's that too. But fundamentally, at the core of things, we have an energy problem. We're trying to replace good, dependable sources of energy, and we're trying to, stop those. We're trying to shut down coal. We're trying to shut down natural gas. We're trying to shut down gasoline when we don't have anything to replace them with. Now, I know a whole bunch of people are like, well, solar and wind and people on bicycles, on their Peloton bicycles. Honestly, that is just this big, and we're trying to destroy a major, major portion of the power grid. And not to mention what's going on with nuclear, which is just crazy. We're trying to destroy this much of the energy grid, and we're trying to replace it with this much. And then we're wondering why we're having electricity shortages. We're not having exploration going on of natural gas. There is plenty of oil and natural gas out there. The problem is that it's becoming harder and harder to get to where it is. There's a massive formation down in Argentina that is going to probably be bigger than the biggest formations in the United States for fracking. But the problem is that they can't build pipelines to get the stuff out. So that's just taking forever to build pipelines to get the natural gas out of there and then ultimately oil. But because they don't have the pipelines, there's no point in actually fracking those sites yet. And so they're just kind of waiting around until finally the pipelines get built by the government so that they can then start really drilling for oil and gas in Argentina. So it's like that. We have all this fracking potential out there, and I mean that quite literally, potential for fracking in so many different countries and formations around the world. But the problem is that the infrastructure doesn't exist because nobody's investing in it. Because they've all been told, just put up some solar panels from Dragon Country and everything will be all right. Well, Dragon Country is not putting up all these solar panels. What they're doing is they're building more nuclear reactors, and they're importing lots of coal, and they're mining more coal this year than they did last year and the year before and the year before. They keep increasing their coal reserves. They're going into Africa to try to get more contracts locked in for gasoline, for oil and for natural gas. They're locking in contracts for commodities because they realize, hey, we need energy in order to grow our society. Whereas Western countries in Europe and the United States are like committing suicide, basically. They're committing national suicide by just destroying the energy. The fact is that we're having energy crisis just powering air conditioners in the United States right now, but we're supposed to crank out a bazillion more cars, and it's having impacts. The price of natural gas is spiking in Europe like nobody's business, and we can't export it fast enough from the United States to Europe because nobody's been investing in this. If we had continued to expand our resources in the United States for fracking and getting natural gas, and I'm from Western Pennsylvania, and you know that's much of what's been going on around here in this area has been. I have a fracking platform like not a mile from my house, actually. And I'm still alive, so I don't know. Seems like a good thing. I don't own the mineral rights under my house, and that's probably because there's some fracking going on way, way, way down below my feet. And that's all right. It's way, way, way down there, and it is creating American jobs, and it is producing energy that powers my lights, powers my camera, powers everything about my life, right? That's where energy comes from. It comes from mostly petroleum products still. And that's the most energy dense, most profitable way of powering our lives. Now, if we hadn't gotten all squeamish about nuclear power, we really could have been like France and had 80% of our power being produced by nuclear power plants if we had gone that route. But we got squeamish about it, and we decided that we wanted to keep burning coal and burning natural gas. It's much more efficient if we were burning nuclear power, using nuclear power. That would be, if we continued to advance that technology, we would be able to go more energy dense all the way up to nuclear, which when you look at the footprint, the actual space that it takes for generating 1 megawatt hour of energy, it's much, much smaller than any other form of energy production. Nuclear power plants are extremely compact and dense, and the waste they put out is very, very compact and dense, and they're the safest power plants out there too, to workers and to people outside. So what we have is a crisis, an energy crisis, and much of it is basically just because we're stupid. Western countries have gotten a case of stupids, and that is why we are having a lot of the crises that we are running into. And mark my words, we are setting ourselves up for a massive collapse just because of this energy. We are not prioritizing food production. We're not prioritizing energy generation. We are prioritizing politics and just games that don't make any logical sense. You cannot take, 10 megawatt hours off the grid and megawatts off the grid, and then put like 1 megawatt on the grid, and then be like, oh, okay, that's going to balance things out. That's the kind of stupidity that we have going on right now. We're taking off major coal-fired power plants, and we're replacing with little dinky, tiny power plants that, even when they're optimally producing, they're not producing as much as the plants that they're supposed to be replacing. And we're just destabilizing our energy grid here in the United States, and all these other Western countries are doing the exact same thing. You can't just keep shutting down power plants and increasing the demand on the energy grid and expect things to work out. And we are burning a lot more gas, oil, and natural gas that could be used for other things, like natural gas can be used for making fertilizer, but instead we're using it to generate electricity because we need it for that. The United States could make a killing right now if we were transforming all of our natural gas into fertilizer and selling that on the world market, but we're not. Why not? Because we're stupid. That's why. That's why we're doing that. We should be generating lots of cheap energy. Open up the coal mines. Let's dig some coal out. It's not as efficient as nuclear power, but it's a lot better than natural gas. It's a lot better than oil. Let's get that back out of the ground. It's cheap, it's plentiful, and it's very effective for what it does. But that's not where we are. And so that's why we are having the everything shortage. It's because we're having an energy crisis that is being brought about by a plague of stupidity. All right, folks, if you like this video, you might want to check out this video right here. Otherwise, I'll see you later. Steve Poplar out.